Okay, this is a sconce. There've been people asking me, hey, now that they've banned the Ryugeo and the Lowenhart, what's up with the CV stuff? Well, I have thought about it, and I had a conversation kind of with my clan, not to give away any cool secrets, but just means that I thought about it more thoroughly because I was asked about it, so we kind of ran through the gig. So, the long and the short of it is, in terms of offense, in terms of output, in terms of threat, it's basically along this line. You've got Arc Royal that has quite a lot of offense. We'll go ahead and give it 3 for the 3 Torp Drop, rar. Ranger, which we're going to give 2 and a plus because it's got not only torps but bombs that are consistent. We're going to give 2 for the Furious because the torps are pretty sexy, but the bombs can be a little trolly, the rockets can be a little trolly. And then we're going to give 1 for the Vesser because you're not going to be able to get citadels and stuff in a smoke cloud. And yeah. Then we're also going to talk about, without using the paint can, we're also going to talk about concealment, which actually lines right up, for the most part, with the offense. So this is already explained to an extent. Lastly, or maybe not lastly, we're going to talk about speed. I think we actually might be lastly. Forgive me, I'm recording this late at night and I'm kind of sleepy. Speed-wise, let's use a different color. You have a 1, you've got a 2, you've got a 2+, and then you've got a 3. It's basically the inverse here. So, a few things before we kind of go into what is this talking about. First off, the Lowenhart needed to be banned. It's not that the bombs were hyper accurate and would always just slaughter DDs, but they were accurate enough to be a genuine problem. And it's one of the other things that they did with the bans is that they limited the amount of smoke cruisers. So because of that, with less smoke cruisers, you're going to be using more DDs. So the Lowenhart would be very rough on that situation. That's not guaranteed that they would go crazy, but it was definitely a thing worthy of consideration, and the Lowenhart is very strong at what it does. The other's the Ryugeo. The Ryugeo kind of breaks this trend. If you notice, the way that this all kind of works out, it's sort of an inverse. Offense versus speed. Offense versus utility, you might say. The Ryugeo has extremely low concealment, so a triple plus there. It has very consistent offense, maybe not a triple, but it's definitely got that. So it's got a very good strength, and it has speed. It's got a lot going for it. So maybe the Ryugeo is the outlier, even though I was kind of curious, why did they ban it? I think if they limited it to 1, it'd probably be a little better, but they've decided to go this route, which is similar to what they did in the Tier 10 season, which is okay. So realistically, we'll just give a quick appraisal of these. If you're going to run an Arc Royal, you've got great offense, but you have terrible speed. What does that mean? And your concealment is the worst. It's all the way up here at the highest amount. Womp womp, you know, must be this high to ride the ride, and in order to get that much offense, you must have this terrible concealment to be able to do the thing. Arc Royal, I think when we tested this, has roughly 50-second journey to go from the hull to the edge of its detection. Give or take a few seconds, don't at me. Which means that if you're going even further than that to attack something, because maybe you're a grid square or 2 away, you basically have a minute per trip. So if you ever come into a situation where, oh, holy crap, we need this DD spotted. Oh, man, we need this help. Oh, man, something. Your reinforcements aren't coming anytime soon. It's going to be 50 seconds to a minute and a half, depending if the Arc Royal is going to finish what it's doing and then lumber its way over to assist you. Ranger is more in the area of about 45. And since we're just kind of talking about this, we'll take this down to 40. And then this, I didn't actually test it, but I'm going to assume about 35. So with the Arc Royal, because this is going to have a terrible response time, the Arc Royal is going to live on a single flank. It's going to be your pushing flank. It's going to be your holding flank. It's going to be your offside, slow them down flank. Whatever it's going to be, you're going to dedicate this to one flank. If you try to put this in a situation where it's working on one flank, but it's also working the other, that's a lot of board room. That's a lot of map distance, and that's you're gonna overtask your CV driver. It's a recipe for a whole bunch of swearing. So if you're gonna use the Ark Royal, use its extreme amount of offense in close support of one team on one flank, and just deal with it from there, because that's what you're going to have to deal with. And also, because of the horrible response time, understand that the Ark Royal is mostly going to be doing what the Ark Royal is going to do. It's not going to be subject to your team's calls for, I need assistance with this, I need assistance with that. You're basically letting the CV player go do Ark Royal stuff. So next one down is going to be Ranger, which has very similar detection. I think it's 13.8 as opposed to 14. Aerial might be a little better than the Ark Royal as well. Offense, pretty good. The Torps, it does a double Torp drop. It's not a joke. It's a pretty solid thing. Rockets, workably not bad. They have a tighter reticle than the Furious, so I mean, they've got some oomph. But the bombs are consistent, and they can harass DDs, which is something the Ark Royal could also do. You've got a pretty good package in terms of oomph, but you have a little more speed. It's not a lot more, but this Ark Royal goes 136, the Ranger goes about 151, 157, so it's 20 more knots. So if you think of, you've got a DD that goes 30 knots, and you've got a Kleber going 50, that's 20 additional knots. It adds up. It matters. And you can see that reflected in the time for a call. If you need assistance and it's going to run from its hull to the edge of its detection, it's 45 seconds. So instead of showing up a minute later, it might be 55 seconds later, it might be 50. Well, what is 5 seconds? If you have 10 runs, 10 squadrons lift off from that carrier, that's 50 seconds. That's potentially an entire minute that your CV player is able to do something, as opposed to just flying to the front. That one extra complete interaction could be very impactful depending on how it ends up playing out in the game. And again, response time is huge. If you, holy crap, I need this DD spotted now. CV, whatever you're doing, get over here and deal with this now. It could matter. Furious. You're trading away a little of the offensive power that the Ranger would have. The bombs are RNG. They're less consistent. They are. It's just a truth. The rocket planes are slow, but the bombers and the torpedo bombers and the carpet bombers are faster. About, 6 to 10 knots, something like that. But again, think of the DD terms, 6 to 10 knots is not a joke. So we mathed the Furious, I think it was more like 42, but for ease of numbers, we're going to say 40. Again, 5-second difference. If you extrapolate it out 10, 12, runs, that's another minute you've saved. So if this has 10 attacks, this might have 11, this might have 12. And granted, if you got the planes to do it, depends on how impactful it's going to be. This is more player interactions on the map over a given set of time. In terms of damage, you're not losing a lot. There's more RNG involved, but you've still got some capability. And the concealment is markedly better at about 12 clicks. So instead of 13.8, you're actually positioned about 2 kilometers closer to the front, which helps you with the faster response time, even though the speed isn't that massive difference. And it's in these territories that you can start looking at supporting both flanks, although you may have a flank that you want to work as a primary thing. Mostly I'm working the off flank, mostly I'm working the contested flank, but you can lumber over to try to give assistance somewhere else. And then lastly, we have the Vesser. The damage on the Vesser is not consistent. The AP bombs are nice. They could get citadels. That would be cool. The Torps are low damage. They're consistent, kind of, but they're low damage. The rockets depend on getting citadels, which means it depends on hitting a cruiser that can be citadeled, because it's not in smoke, it's available, you can actually get to the thing. It's conditional. Because it's conditional, it's not reliable. So if you're looking for a CV that's going to give you reliable damage, the Vesser's not necessarily going to be that. But the Vesser is very fast. And it has even better detection than the Furious by a little. It's not by a lot. It's like 11.6 instead of 12. But you still have it. And the way that the Vesser's constructed, I think it's actually rather hard to Citadel, which means in a way it's tankier. And if you wanted to kind of use it as bait, hey, look, there's a CV. Why don't you shoot that for a second? Give our cruisers a break. You could theoretically take some holes in it. More likely they would be overpens and holes as opposed to citadels and murder. But the fact that you have the speed, the fact that you can be closer to the front line with the speed, means that a Vesser would be a prime possibility for actually assisting both flanks at once. So if you're in a single CV situation as opposed to a double CV comp, this would be able to give you spotting on one flank and then spotting on another flank. This would be able to respond to, holy crap, we need to spot this DD now. Potentially 15, 20, 25 seconds faster than an Arc Royal could if we go from one extreme to the other. So if you're looking for a supportive kind of responsive thing, look lower on the list. If you're looking for more of a, hey CV dude, you know what you're doing, just run around murder people, you're looking more toward the top of the list. If you're looking for a more balanced option that's kind of between, you're looking more toward the middle of the list. Ultimately, there's two factors for what carrier you pick. Technically three. Do you own the carrier? That would be the third one. But the two factors are going to be, what is our team comp and what do we need? Do we need support? Do we need damage? Figure out where that is on the list. Secondly, how good of a player do we have on a given CV? And this is the one that I always have to add in because it's the easiest thing to forget, which is basically, if somebody is great on the Ranger, but mediocre on the Arc Royal, and you're like, we need the damage, bring the Arc Royal. If the player's not going to perform at their peak, but they could perform at their peak here, or even on the Furious, or even on the Vest, or whatever, play to your player. Don't play toward the meta, unless you're obviously in a Typhoon or Hurricane situation, in which case you're probably not watching this video because you've already done all this theory crafting yourself. But if you were looking for a second opinion, first thing, priority, put a player in a ship that they're comfortable and perform in, then find of those ships which one is going to fit your comp, and then ask, do you still have that ship? Because if they don't, then they're not going to be able to use it. So, hey, sleepy humor. All right, so that's going to be kind of the rundown on all this stuff. It is fairly basic, but it really wasn't intended to be anything super crazy. If you're going to continue using the double CV against double battleship, you did technically take a damage hit, so it's going to be a little harder to make it perform. I do expect to see more double battleships, or definitely one CV, one battleship comps, as you know, the quote-unquote OP CVs have been removed. But this is going to be a chart that should give you at least a heads up. So, hope it helped. Have a good one.